All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this week's Snack and Chat, Adopt for Life's weekly Facebook Live, where we explore topics that are top of mind for families formed by adoption, kinship, and customary care. Today, we're going to be talking with Lynn Deiulis. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. I probably thought about it too much. And about her new book, What is Your Story? Let's talk about adoption and kinship. My name is Chantel. I'm the community engagement liaison with Adopt for Life. And whether you're watching this now live or maybe you're watching this later on replay, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Feel free to ask questions or put in a comment or just say hi in the chat. I will take just a brief moment to remind you that we are live streaming on our public Facebook page. So what that means is that whatever you put in the comments is going to be available to the public. So if you are asking a question, just be mindful that you're not including any identifiable information about children, so names, health information, things like that. So just keep that in mind, but we do want to hear from you, and we hope that you find today's discussion informative and engaging. I know I'm looking forward to it. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Lynn, because I know she's going to get into more of her own story as we ask her some questions about this book. So Lynn holds a Bachelor of Arts in Child and Youth Care and has enjoyed a 25-year career in adoption services. She's worked with many members of the adoption constellation, so children, birth parents, or adoptive parents, as well as foster care and kinship families. Her personal and professional journey sparked a passion to write a book that offers opportunity for children to learn the unique details of their adoption or kinship stories and helps adults talk to children about how they came to be living together as a family or living with another family. So I know we're all looking forward to diving into the book. So I'm going to pass it over to Cindy. I'm really excited. Cindy, who's our regional parent liaison, one of our regional parent liaisons of the Northern region, is my guest host today. So I'm really excited about that. So thank you, Cindy, for also taking time to be here with us. So I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me, Chantel. I'm really excited to be here and to interview Lynn because we have quite a long-standing history together, both being members of the Northern Ontario community. So thanks for having me. Lynn, I guess to start, can you tell us a little bit about how this book came to be? Was there a specific moment or a catalyst that caused you to publish this book?
Okay. Thank you for the invitation, by the way. This is a real privilege to be here. I've always loved this group, so here I am. So yes, there was a catalyst, and that would have been my retirement. So I worked for 25 years for Neofax, and I worked in children's mental health and all of that stuff before I took that particular job. But my whole career as an adoption worker, I had to be quiet about my own status as an adopted person, just because it causes potential conflict, and people might be uncomfortable if they know they're talking to an adoptee. So that always interfered a little bit with my ability to be fully who I am. So upon retirement, the other piece too is that as an adoption worker, I've always looked for resources for families to be able to sit down and talk with their kids and to just educate themselves even about what are the issues for all folks in the constellation. So that definitely the retirement was the catalyst. So this was actually started out as a handout. I thought I'd make a handout for my former agency because I couldn't find this resource when I worked there, and I had some time on my hands with retirement. And retirement does leave you, especially retirement in COVID, leaves you with a lot of time on your hands. So I just started this handout, and I have found and met many members of my paternal and maternal birth family, including Krista Donnelly, who is the illustrator of the book. So Krista is a maternal half-sister, and I knew she was a graphic artist. I only met her in 2018, so our relationship is pretty new. So I met her, and so I knew that I'd seen her work, and it's lovely. And so I just reached out to her, said, I want to do this handout. Could you? And I can't draw. I cannot draw. No. So, but she can. What a partnership. So I reached out and said, could you draw me a butterfly and a caterpillar? And when she sent those to me, honestly, the story just began to flow. The book, the questions, I think it was just the personification that brought it forward for me. So it just started to flow. And then she put a book cover. She like designed a cover. A little funny story with that. It said book 1 in a series. I said, no, you need to take that off. Take that off right away. Because I'd never thought of it as a book. It was a handout. But when I saw it in page form as she was designing it, then I thought, you know what, we might have something here. We really might, and the bonus was she and I getting to know each other a lot, right? And that it is evolved in the book as well, because she learned about me growing up adopted, and I learned what it was like to find out you had 2 sisters that your mother had given birth to and you didn't know about when you're now an adult yourself. So we learned a lot. We connected a lot through this project. But I digress. So I think, yeah, it started as a handout and now it's a book, and I'm just extremely excited about it.
Oh, great. And so this book has just been recently published, so chances are a lot of our viewers are unfamiliar with it. Can you explain to us a little bit about the book?
So yes, absolutely. I feel the book is more of a journey than an actual story. So it's not a book that you would just go and pick up for your niece or nephew for Christmas or a birthday or some other celebration, unless they are part of the the experience with adoption. You can certainly talk to kids who aren't in that about kids that are, but that's not, one of the things I appreciate about being able to speak about the book in this forum is that people won't misunderstood the purpose, that you don't just hand this book to your child and say, oh, it's about adoption here. It's a book you should be reading together. And you should also read it before you present it to your child. There might be some triggers in there for you as an adoptive parent or a caregiver, kinship. There might be some things in there that you need to process before you can present to the child that you're reading it to. There's absolutely nothing wrong, folks, about being emotional when you're reading this book. That's perfectly fine. It's just you want to be able to collect your thoughts and explain things, right? So because I think if when there's emotion, it validates their emotion, and we should never forget that, right? We're not stoic, or we shouldn't be. We should be real people. I know parents are real people. What a concept, right? So the book tries to reach out to all those things in a non-threatening way. So it's aimed at helping children who are developmentally around 7 to 10 in that age range. And they should be involved, as I said, in the process, or be familiar. Might be a cousin or somebody they know. So it still might be a good book to speak with them with. So if you know a child that's living in a family that they were not necessarily born completely into, such as kinship or customary care, adoption, foster care even, then you know a child who has questions. I'm sure of that. And further, you know a child who likely doesn't know how to ask those questions. So depending on the adults in the child's life, they may not know what to say or how to bring the topic up about how the child arrived to be a part of their family. So it's a conversation starter, this book. The book is divided into chapters because that's how you lay out a book. But again, if you read it ahead, you might not start at chapter 1. If your child, for example, was in foster care before they came to you, you might want to start at chapter 4. You might want to start at a different place. The intro page would be the only thing, because it kind of explains that the story is built for the child and that they are the star, that this at the end becomes their story. And so I think that's important to begin the book with, but then, you can start anywhere. So the book is also divided by activity pages. So there's a word search, and then there's an activity such as draw a spider web, or draw a family trait, or draw a custom that you guys have done together as a family, that kind of stuff. So that's a natural break. So if that chapter has been emotional for the child or for the reader, the adult, then it's a natural way to stop. And you don't have to read the book the next night necessarily. You might just bring it out at another time. So those activities between the chapters really help to stop that. It's also, the book is also useful for professionals and therapists. So it's a good natural stop between sessions for those folks as well. So the other big piece of the book is that it's designed to free parents or caregivers that are reading the book that they don't know all the answers. It shows that, you know, you might ask your parent a question and they don't know the answer because, you know, it wasn't in the social medical history information or they didn't have access to it. And so it, you know, it'll give you that chance, first of all, if you've looked ahead to have an idea of what they might be asking and to be ready. But, you know, so nowhere in the book does it say, go ask mom and dad. It says, who can you ask about? Who can help you to find this information out? Who can you talk with about this? So it's, you know, it gives you the gift of being able to say, I don't know, right? Because we don't know everything. I know our kids think we do some, well, and then they become teenagers and we know nothing. So we just, that's all right too.
Yeah, I'm entering that phase right now.
So yes. But so speaking of the activities, I just want to mention as well, when I was starting to look at this book with other people, it came to my attention that if a family has multiple children, or if it's a library book or a book that's put at the earlier center, if someone ends up doing the activities, then it kind of spoils it for the next person that's going to read the book. So it took me a long time, and as someone who, you know, hadn't spent all that time thinking about it, you know, kind of walked in, I explained the dilemma, and they said, why don't you just post it on your website? So brilliant, right? So on the website, I don't know if you'll be sharing that, Chantal. I'll just say it at this moment so people can jot it down. It's www.whatisyourstorybook.com. And there's an activity section. And so people can print as many copies of those so they can keep that center, the chapters between the book uncompleted or incompleted, and then they can use those. So it is, you know, yeah. And there's also an activity that Krista has designed. Puppets are very therapeutic and they help us to talk. And so this is one of the activities also on that page that they can print and cut out with the kiddos, and then they can talk, right, with the puppets. And we know that's very successful because it takes everybody out of the equation, and it's simply the bumblebee having a conversation with the ladybug. So that's there as well. So all, you know, then it's available. That's what I love, is you can download it, you can print it, and it's something that it's a good solution to the fact that there's only the one set in the book itself. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that for sure. Having multiple children in my family it's always like the logistics. So that's terrific that we can just go to the website.
I'm glad, and I'm really glad that solution was provided to me before this talk. So that's great too.
Yeah, it worked out for sure.
It did. So I'll just, in general, the topics in the book include whether or not alternatives were explored before the child came to your family. You know, it talks a little bit, you know, it brings up why the child might have left the birth parent's care. It talks about the understanding of the child's birth culture, particularly if it's different than yours, and which of course speaks to cultural competence. And so to understand and know, because those questions are going to come, and so you'll be prepared. And then what is the new family's culture and what are similarities? So it brings those kinds of stuff. It talks about genetics. So if the child has blue eyes in a brown-eyed family, and I think around grade 3, they learn that the 2 brown-eyed parents cannot have a blue-eyed baby. And so, you know, they will have that question. And so foster care, kinship, legal guardianship terminology is in the book, so that, you know, it's introduced to them in a safe place. And it encourages discussion of questions. And as I said, the book encourages them, who can I ask or who can I speak with? It's not assumed that mom, dad, mom knows the questions, know the answers.
Great. And Lynn, you mentioned the main characters in your story are a caterpillar and a butterfly. I think that's them on the wall behind you, possibly.
Yeah, yeah. There's the ladybug too up there. Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about what led you to use insects as the characters in your book?
I sure can. So the one thing that struck me, even for the handout, was that I wanted the book to be relatable to anyone. So it's not so whatever your culture, whatever your race, whatever you look like, if you look like your birth family, if you look like your adoptive family or your kinship or whatever, it it, it's irrelevant to the characters. So and a lot of people said, wow, kids are afraid of insects. Well, these insects are so cute that Krista's done such a job of just making them endearing and cuddly, really, even though they're not cuddlyable, but they're just awesome. So that was my thing, is I wanted kids to be able to relate, because in my work I've had books that I've worked with kids, and children have said, but they don't look like my family. And so no, these characters in this book look like no one's family, no one's worker. They don't look like the actual judge, but they're representative, and so hopefully they're more relatable that way. So that was the reason.
Yeah, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into every sort of aspect and detail
Yeah.
of the book.
Yeah.
Okay. And Lynn, who would you say would benefit from owning this book or reading this book?
So the book is useful for parents, caregivers, other adults involved in the adoption, kinship, customary, and other alternative care journeys to facilitate open, honest discussions with children about their unique stories. It's also useful potentially for birth parents who might have openness, and to be able to talk with their children, use the book as well as a facilitator to be able to discuss that. I tried to keep it usable for anyone. And as I said earlier, step parents might even find some value in the book as well, in using it to explain why, that they're not living with both parents, both biological parents. So, and what's the role of the step parent, is also, I think, doable in the question format. So yeah, and professionals I mentioned earlier, who are working, either adoption workers that are preparing kids for adoption or supervising an adoption or kinship placement, and therapists, children's mental health workers could also benefit, I believe.
That sounds like the entire constellation really would benefit.
Yeah.
Great. One thing you've said about your book is that the aim was to help children find their voice and also navigate complex emotions that they might experience when being placed in unfamiliar environments. So can you tell us why you feel this message is important to get out?
Yeah, so I think the book aims not only to help children find their voice, but to find an audience that will listen. So if you're sitting with the child to read this book, clearly you're prepared to answer those questions. Clearly you're prepared to at least entertain who can you go to find out the answer if you don't know it. Or you wouldn't, if you've read the book, you wouldn't, and you're comfortable with it, you're fine to do that. If you've read the book and you're not, then you might look for somebody who could. So, because the important thing is, like, I said earlier, children have questions, but they don't know how to ask. And even adoptive parents have said to me, Lynn, I don't know what age should I bring it up, their birth parents, especially with closed adoptions, or what, I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know what to say. So this book hopefully will open that door for them as well, so that, because we know everybody's thinking it, and and the parents are wondering what the children are thinking, and the children are wondering how they could ask. So so hopefully it'll bring them together so they can start this journey together and benefit that way. But finding that audience, I think that's the critical part, because I remember when I would ask my mother questions, she would freeze. It was closed adoption, all of those things were different way back then, but I can still feel her panic when I would ask something. So I stopped. Right. I stopped. And, a lot of information, a lot of things that I would have loved to have known, I didn't know until I was an adult myself. So hopefully other children won't feel that way when the topic comes up. So, I think it just gives people permission to feel comfortable with the topic. That's my hope for it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think too, like your advice about getting the caregiver or the parents to read it first, so they have an idea of, yeah, like this is really coming from the inside of an adoptee's mind. Like these are the questions that we want to not necessarily, it's not always finding the answer, but we want to talk about those questions and learn how to ask those questions. So anyway, sorry, I just jumped in there. Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's like giving permission for the questions to be asked, right? It's terrific. Okay. And Lynn, is there any other significance for you personally for having adoptees share their perspectives and experiences? I know you just spoke about that a little bit from your own childhood. Do you have anything else to add in terms of?
So I think this book, the hope is that if there's an elephant in the room, that the kids are going to be able to throw a carriage on that and ride it over to get their questions answered, or even just to ride it over to start the discussion, or to ride it over to talk with people who've also had that experience. You know, maybe siblings will be reading the book together, you know, after the parents have. But, you know, the book, once it's read, hopefully it'll be on a bookshelf with multiple kids in the home, and they'll look at it also. So, you know, I think it's really important. The other piece I just want to kind of throw in, because I forgot earlier, is that the caregiver in the book is represented by leaves and a family plant. And so the egg, as butterflies do, they glue their egg to a plant, and then the plant leaf provides all the caregiving and nurturing that the egg needs to hatch and grow into a healthy caterpillar, and then eventually a healthy butterfly. So that analogy in there, I think, is really a good way to talk about it. It kind of depersonalizes, and it just talks about, you know, this, especially if you're in a kinship and they're asking about why they can't be, you know, with their parents, even though they see them and they know them and all of that, you know, is to talk about the leaf needed to be healthy. And so, you know, we work to find the healthiest leaf that you could grow into a healthy butterfly. So that analogy hopefully will help all family circumstances to talk about those issues. So yeah, so like I said, many kids on the adoption journey feel insecure. You know, the one thing we need to keep in mind about kids, and not all kids, but I think there is a good number of them that feel that if they have that insecurity, if they weren't good enough to have been kept by their birth parents, or their extended family, or their community, and eventually, like kids that are from out of country adoptions, international adoptions, by their own country, then why are they good enough to be in your family? And so there's so many opportunities in the book to reinforce that. So, you know, hopefully that message will come through, and it will facilitate those discussions between children and the adults. So they need to work that through. They need to discover their unique fit and their unique story. And what better way than to ask questions?
Yeah, I got shivers a little bit when you were talking about the egg on the leaf. I think that's a terrific analogy. And I love that it's something that happens in nature. So sort of normalizes this process for our children, you know, that one person has the egg and then this other place nurtures it. I think that's great. I got a little chill. So, Lynn, just shifting gears a little bit, do you have any advice for adoptive or customary care families who are just beginning their journey?
I hope so. I will try. So in my experience, be comfortable, be open and honest with the child or the youth that's asking you the questions or that's bringing it up. It's hard for them to do that. So just try to be comfortable about it. And it's normal. It's not about the adult. It's about the child and their need to know. So in order to achieve that, you need to be informed. So gather as much information as you can. And even if you read this book, you might think, you know what, if they ask about that, I don't remember it from the social medical history. So you might take that out and have a look at it before you read the book. And if you don't know it, there may be some way you can find that out so that you're ready to answer those questions as well, or to say, you know what, let's look at your social medical history depending on the age of the child. So being prepared like that, I think, will make you more comfortable. And also, even like as a prep, when we're in the process of being selected and, matched with the child, really read those social and medical histories, really get to know the information in there. And if there's something confusing, ask. I always felt in my work that adoptive parents feel like we're doing them a favor. And so they're afraid sometimes to ask questions and to question anything that we say or do. Question it. These are your children. This is your child's future. So question it, right? And ask that. So if there's a half sentence, the writer shouldn't be offended by the fact you've discovered there's a half sentence, because the half sentence doesn't make sense. Because you need to ask those questions when you have the worker there and the worker has access to the file, who can go and double check that work, because the work in the file is not necessarily written by the worker sitting in front of you. So it might be the work of an intake worker or a child and youth worker. So they need to do their research too, but it's all in that process. So, so you need to empower yourselves to ask those questions. And when you get the life book and the beautiful pictures, and, we're all focused on how cute this is. And, make sure you know who they are. Who are those people in the picture? Because you're very excited. And, you're taking this information in, but in 6 months or a year or 5 years, are you going to really remember which grandma that was? Paternal or maternal? And it should be there, right? So ask the questions before that file is sealed. And, so the pictures are the image, but you're the storyteller. And so you need to know the story of what's in that picture, right? You don't want a bunch of, I don't know, if you can avoid it. Right. So, and that might be, who can we ask? So if you still have contact, for example, with a foster parent, maybe you could go back and ask them about it. But if you do that up front, I think you'll be more comfortable when those questions come out. So really just, and, your child's life book, all of that stuff, the social medical history, make sure you ask your questions. I did adoption. I was an adoption worker for many years, and I always tried to empower my families, because I don't know what your questions are. I'm not sure where you're unclear, right? So if you tell me, then hopefully I can walk you through that. So, meet with the foster parents, ask questions of them too. Did you ever meet the birth parents? What were they like? That's going to come in handy, hopefully someday, because you're going to be explaining all of that, right? And sometimes the information you've all read social and medical histories, or most of you, and sometimes the information there is just unclear, or it's not the way you want to explain it to your child. An example of that is that teen pregnancy, if that was the case, is not hereditary. And so, right, we need to make sure that we understand those facts in the thing, because even if it was, the grandmother had that person at a young age, and then that person had a baby at a young age, we interpret, and we need to be so careful about that. So understand what's there, ask the questions, and the best memory that a foster parent has that you could give your child is a good one. So that's, those are the gifts that you guys can get prepared to give when you're reading this book. So, but I just can't emphasize enough, get your information, ask your questions. So you're not perfect. Your family's not perfect. Their family's not perfect. That's okay. It's okay to share that, right? It's okay for the child to know that and present it over time. And when it's developmentally appropriate, that's great. If you make up a fantasy and you bring this beautiful fantasy story, and then suddenly they meet their birth family and it's not at all what you thought, what else have you not told them the truth about is where they're going to go. So avoid that by, at a developmentally appropriate level, of course, but get your info. And the person you're sitting across from, the worker that's helping you, there's kinship workers, like all of them, everyone has some kind of worker that they can ask those questions of. So be informed. This is your child and you are the child's parent. So feel empowered.
I can relate to that for sure, with just the excitement when you're first being placed with the children. You're so excited, and I think like your advice to just pause and figure out if you have all the information or what is missing. I wish I could kind of go back in time and do a similar thing for sure. So that's great advice. Lynn, do you have any plans? You already mentioned about the series. You asked
No, Krista did.
Ixnay that. But what about workshops or speaking engagements? Anything coming up for you that we should know about?
So because it's kind of, I'm just getting started with this, certainly I'm more than happy to attend workshops and to talk about the book and how to use the book. So I have done some for some adoption workers. I have some coming up for therapists. So, you know, just invitations that I'm looking forward to. I'm speaking probably with Wendy's Wonderful Life Recruiters at the end of the month, which will be just an awesome opportunity to share this book, so that, you know, my hope is that people will have it at the beginning of the adoption process, right? And so that they can understand, you know, and even reading this book, to me, if you're a parent being matched and you've read this book, you know what to ask so that you're ready for the questions in the book. Like, it's even that early that I feel that this tool could be utilized. And, you know, I'll go back to, you know, more books. I'm now I've recently joined the Never Say Never Club on that, because there's a book about foster care that keeps rattling around in this old brain. But so I won't say never on that, but this one, the important thing for me is people just don't go pick up this book, that they understand what it's for, that they read it, they get familiar with it, comfortable with it, and then present it. I just think that so the more I can tell people that, the safer this book will be as a tool, as a therapeutic tool and a journey.
No, that's a great message. And I know I have other books on different topics that I've wanted to present with my children, but it's uncomfortable. So I just leave the book out, you know, for them to find it. And I think that's great to know that's not what this book is. This book, it's more of an experience as opposed to the book. So definitely not something like you mentioned, that resource didn't really exist, or at least not in my awareness before this. So that's great.
The more books about this, the better, like that spur the discussion. I mean, like you, I'm an adult adoptee, and when I was a kid, I think we had like two. One was, where do babies come from? And the other one was, why was I adopted? Those are the only two books about. And I would just be like, there must be some secret code in here that is telling me where I came from, right? So this book, where you can sit with your parent and talk things through, I think that's such a wonderful resource. So thank you.
Yeah. I love it as a compliment to the life book, you know, because my kids all have life books and they love looking at their life books, but they just really get like sidetracked with them pictures of themselves. Look how cute I was, you know, this kind of thing, as opposed to having those deeper conversations. So it's great to have this as a compliment to the life book. Lynn, if people wanted to get in touch with you, or if they wanted to purchase a copy of the book, what's the best way for that to happen?
So probably the simplest answer to that would be the website, which I think, Chantal, you're going to be able to promote that, yeah, so that people will know how to reach me. I also have an email, which is ldeiulisauthor@gmail.com. They can message me through Facebook. And again, like Chantal said, a lot of this stuff, except for my email, it is public though. So you want to make sure that you're reaching me private message, especially if you're talking about anything that's, you know, that should be kept private. So the email would probably be the best. And I don't know if Chantal, if you're able to post that as well.
I can. So it's LD.
Yeah, Deiulis. You did a good job, by the way. Don't hesitate.
So all one word.
All one word. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat right now.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, and the books are available like on the website. It's Amazon, Friesen Press, Indigo Books, online only. It's not available in the store. Barnes and Noble, and there's also an ebook, which again was a good rationale to do the webpage with the activities. so that, you can read the ebook or purchase the ebook and then print the activities. So if you happen to live in Timmins, I do have some copies available at Altered Reality, which is on 3rd Avenue downtown. Mike was kind enough to put some books in his store for people for ease of purchase. They can go in and get that if they live in Timmins or in the surrounding area. So.
Okay, so the website's in the chat. I also posted a separate link for the activities. So those links will get you straight to there, as well as your email. So now everybody knows how to get the book, get a hold of Lynn if they have any questions, or if they want to organize some type of workshop. That's how you get a hold of her.
Yeah, and Lynn, I know Chantal mentioned at the beginning of the Snack and Chat about from the northern region at Adopt for Life. We just had so much interest in having you on here. So I'm hoping that you'll get a lot of messages. It seems like everyone I talked to was, oh, Lynn Deiulis was our adoption worker. And everybody had such wonderful things to say. I know even in my own journey, when you were still working and we were sort of struggling, I reached out to you and you were the one who connected me with Adopt for Life in the first place way back when. So it's really great to have you on here. I know a lot of people are going to be watching. Just before we close up, we just wanted to give you kind of the space to share any additional messages, really anything you like with our community.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for your kind words. I've always loved working. I miss that. I miss working with. I always said that I was able to create a love sandwich. I would take an adoptive family that needed this and the child that needed the adoptive family, and I made a love sandwich out of that. And that was my career. I mean, what better career can someone have, right? So what I will ask folks or mention, couple of things. If you purchase the book from a site that has a review, if you could leave a review or even just, the stars, because what happens is only because it keeps it at the top. So it's like keeping the book at the front of the store. So people will know where to get it and other people will learn about it. So I would ask that it just keeps it at the top of the pile. So if you honestly like it, please leave a review. And if you don't like it, leave a review as well. That's important information for me, especially if there's another book in the wings. But it is important to know, right? If I can't fix it in the book, I can address it in workshops if it is something of concern. So that would be helpful for me. So as well, if you're in a position to do so, consider purchasing an extra copy of the book and providing it to a center where, say, kinship grandparents, aunties and uncles are that will go to, like early years centers, places like that, so that they can access the book. Because some people won't be able to afford it. And then speaking of that, even that, if you can afford to print out a set of the puppets or a set of the activities and just donate that to the center, because a lot of grandparents don't have printers. They don't even have computers. So to even do that bit. So if you know of somebody that could benefit from that, please do that. It is a community. And we need to help each other. And that's one way I feel that's important to do it. So, look around too for your, there's Aboriginal culture centers or Indigenous cultural centers. And in your community, there might be centers, especially with so many new Canadian communities. There's different things opening up. So check with those places as well to see, because I know adoption isn't in all culture, but kinship is. From all the research I've ever done, that kinship has always existed. So it still might be beneficial. So those are the kind of things. So if you could explore donating a copy of the book, I think that would be awesome. Other places might be women's shelters, places that, have the topic, but don't have the means. So if you think of somewhere that someone might benefit and you can afford to donate a copy or some of the handouts, that would be awesome. I think that's a little good way of giving back, right?
I love it. It's the pay it forward idea.
Yeah, exactly. Chantal, did anything come in on the chat?
So I don't have any direct questions. I think a lot of people were just really happy to hear more and curious about the book. I will just relay a couple comments. So somebody who has purchased the book and just received it, so they're looking forward to diving into that. And another comment just saying thank you to you for writing this book, that it's such a great resource for professionals and as well for families. So another thank you. And I'm sure many, many people will be watching this later on replay. So if there are any specific questions for you, I'll make sure to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, as I said, if you're watching this on replay and you do have questions for Lynn, you can just add them to the comments and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch today and ask your questions and leave your comments. We always appreciate it. Of course, thank you to Cindy for hosting today, and a big thank you to Lynn for coming on and talking about her book. Always happy to have you. And if you have another book coming up, well, you know where to find us.
Oh, okay.
In your series, right?
Yeah, Krista's series.
That's right. Well, thanks everyone. Tune in next week, next Tuesday, same time, same channel. We're talking to Van Locke. We're talking about caregiving and redefining family. So it's going to be a really interesting discussion. So I hope you will join us then. And until then, take care of yourselves and have a great week. Bye for now.